My personal vision is to inspire people to be better versions of themselves through storytelling. I mean, really, I've thought about it. I'm like, what's the common thread here in everything that I do, right? I see that I can inspire people, whether it's through films I make, television I produce, music I play, just having a social platform, motivational speaking. It's all inspiration. It's for people to kind of dig deep and be like, let me just put all of this away. Like, what is my purpose? How can I be better? Like, how can I get motivated by right things in life? And if I can inspire people to do that through anything I do, then that's on my agenda.
Okay, Spear and Clover podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jason Skisick. I'm joined today, and this is a big one, you guys. You guys are going to love this conversation. I'm joined with Jenny Feterovich. Jenny is so many things. I have a list in front of me as long as my arm. And so rather than try and tell everybody, Jenny, can you tell me just a little bit about some of the hats that you wear, and we'll kind of unpack it as we go?
Sure, of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. I love your energy and enthusiasm. So this is gonna be a great conversation. You nailed my name. Usually people just go, what? So that was great. So some of the hats that I wear. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm a film and television producer. I'm a philanthropist. I'm a motivational speaker. Most importantly, I'm a mommy. That's probably the biggest job that I have. Yeah. I am the world-renowned house music and underground music DJ as well. Yeah, that's just a few things I enjoy doing in life.
What of those hats that we've mentioned, whether it's the DJ, whether it's producing TV and movies, what of those things comes first? Maybe give us your entrepreneurial kind of origin story.
So growing up in the Soviet Union, you have to realize business was highly illegal. Like it was outlawed by the government. It wasn't, entrepreneur was not a thing that you thought about, knew about. It was actually punishable by law. So if somebody bought something and wanted to resell it, like you could go to jail for a really long time, no joke. So it's not like you would grow up with this inspiration of like, hey, this is what I want to be one day, even though I did have a foray into entrepreneurship when I was younger. I took some strawberries from a neighbor at the summer house and tried to sell them at the train station, was busted by my parents. And it became not only punishable by government, but also by my parents as well. So that was not something I knew much about. So when I came to America, I discovered a lot of things, and music was probably first because music in Russia Soviet Union was extremely controlled by the government. So was film, so was business, but I always like this idea of creating something from nothing, which is what business endeavor is to me, right? It's an idea that comes alive from nothing. It's something very much what film is, very much what composing music is, right? To me, all those things are kind of hand in hand, So my first foray into business, I was probably about 18 years old, and I became a concert promoter. And I had one of the biggest losses. I went somewhere to see somebody in Connecticut. I loved the woman. She was a great performer. Me and my friend decided to bring her to Detroit, and we lost $25,000, which was a lot of money at 18 years old. And I learned a lot of lessons during that whole thing, why it didn't work out and why you can't be overly optimistic, location, timing, and everything. But that was a hard loss. I borrowed all this money from my parents, and I lost it, and it was hard. So that's how I entered entrepreneurship. And after that, I've had a series of businesses, including a resale shop for clothing, kitchen and bath showroom. Like I would just try everything I could get my hands on to see what I enjoyed, So I've been in business since I was 18 years old and in different kinds of capacities. I was telling you in our off conversation, I even owned a gym at one point. Yeah. Which was a spectacular failure. Spectacular, but I loved
it. I think you can tell a lot by a person on how they describe their failures. And spectacular failure is up there in the best ways. So I'm the same way. Even in my worst moments, I'm like, wow, it was a horrible, horrible, great lesson that I learned. So where does Jenny LaFemme step in? When do you get into DJing? And what was that world like, especially coming into I think it's not a secret to say a male-dominated industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So it comes in like, imagine you had all these limits in your life, and then you come to a place like America and you hear all this beautiful music. It was like I heard reggae for the first time, hip hop for the first time. Like my mind was just getting blown by all these different possibilities that were here. So when we came to America, we had nothing. We had 6 suitcases, $100. We had to give up all our worldly possessions when we left the Soviet Union and basically start from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Life was very, very hard. We lived in a basement apartment. We had no money. I didn't have a bed. I slept on a couch. Everything was weird. But one thing I loved the most, I would watch the show. It was called The New Dance Show. One day when you have time, just Google it and you will just enjoy it immensely. So imagine a Detroit ghetto version of the Soul Train that was taking place in somebody's basement. So that's what the News Dance Show is. But it had the coolest people with the best outfits and they played the most amazing music.
Uh-huh.
Like literally, it was the best. So that was sort of my escape from this reality that was not so great, coming from Moscow and being a teenager and having all these things and now having nothing. And I don't know why I was like, one day I'm going to find these people. They're the coolest people. And this is my people. I don't know why I felt like this because we couldn't be more different, you know? So one day when I was about 17, I found them at a club called Heaven. It was after hours club with house music. And there were this type of people there and they were dancing and it was so freeing and it was so beautiful. I fell in love with the music. And I started hanging around in the scene, you know, but not till I saw a woman behind the decks, which was a couple years later, a few years later, did I give myself permission to think about that I could do this too, which is very interesting. And a lot of women that I've talked to feel the same way, right? All you see is guys, so you never think it's something that you do, right? And I saw a woman, I was like, bam, wow, I want to do this. There's women that do this too, not just guys. This is fun. I don't have to be just a fixture on the dance floor. I could just like be driving the ship. So I went to a Russian party and it was terrible. And I've been to good parties. I was like, oh, this sucks. I'm going to do my own party. And people are like, who's going to DJ? I'm like, I've seen how people do it. I'm going to do it myself. So never having to have any experience. I rented equipment. I rented a place. It was Christmas Eve because most of my audience was Russian Jews and they had nothing to do. So I had a kept parties. So I was standing there with 300 people in front of me at a party with never having done this before. So, and from there, my career sort of developed, you know. It's like everything in life. I never wait for people to give me an opportunity, right? Nobody's going to come knocking on your door and going, here's the opportunity of a lifetime. So I just started by creating my own opportunity at first with like Russian events. And then it slowly snowballed to me playing around Detroit, then playing outside of Detroit, then playing around the world.
Do you think that coming from the Soviet Union had an impact on that? Or do you think that's just intrinsic to you? Because I know a lot of really, entrepreneurial folks have come out of that place. And so I'm just curious if you feel like that was a response to your early environment, or do you think that was just something that was in you?
I don't think it's the environment. I mean, it could be your immediate environment where you grow up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you watch people within your surroundings taking steps or doing that. Or I think it's something inside of you, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not like I'm fearless. I feel the fear of fear, but I do it anyways. And I talk about this all the time. It's okay to feel fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's your inherent idea. Are you afraid to fail? Right? Because you're going to fail. Everybody's going to fail. It's just what it is. It's how you deal with it, right? It's how do you deal with risk? How do you deal with failure, right? Most people spend, like you said, maybe they'll spend 2, 3, 4 years playing in their basement before they will step out to play for an audience. And then they will still fail because they've never played in front of the audience, right? I was always of the belief that it's better to learn while you're in it because there's nothing like it, right? Like you building that airplane on your way down, like they're always talking, right? And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? It's like I shaved my head and everybody was freaking out. It's like it's my hair is gonna grow back. Like who gives a shit? Like so,
Yeah.
what's the worst thing? I would have walked out and I would have failed, and that's okay. Like literally, whatever people are doing, like I want them to understand this. It's totally okay. You're not going to die. There's gonna be tomorrow, and you can do something else. Like that's what it is. Or you could try the same thing again by looking back and saying, "Oh, that sucked. I could have done this better," you know. And the wonderful thing about the stage is most people don't even know what it's supposed to be like. I always tell that to people too. Like when you go on stage, you're pitching or you're playing music or you're doing this or that, you're speaking, nobody knows. Only you know what your intent was. And most of the time when you're like fucking up, people are like in this ride with you based on who you are, you know? So I don't know if it's cultural necessarily because we grew up in a pretty repressed society that was like, no, 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 like this is how you go. This is how you operate, you know?
And one thing I noticed, I can think, I don't remember exactly when it happened, but there was a point in my life where I realized I actually started to revel in failure because I realized the best stories come out of screwing things up. Like there's never, the best stories don't come from like, oh, and then everything went the way we hoped it would and we made a bunch of money or we did this thing. It's always like, so we're in, Bad Gastein, Austria, and we missed this train and we're out in the middle of the night and we don't have any firewood. Like that's the best stories are the things where things don't go well. And genuinely looking at your Instagram, even just right before this call and doing the little bit of digging that I try to do before the conversation, I'm like, here's a person who's fucking living. And I love that. You're creating things. At what point did you move into doing production and what was that process like?
So film industry had come to Michigan at that time with the incentives. In Hollywood is a bunch of whores. They like to move around where the money is.
Yeah.
So as they were coming here, a friend of mine called me and he said, listen, the film industry is coming and should we open a business around this? Like, and let's service them because they're going to be here and they're going to need all these things. So I was like, boom, new business idea. Love it. So me and one partner opened up a company called Filming in Detroit. We were supplying extras and we were supplying automobiles and locations to the film industry. I quickly learned it's not something I wanted to do because like legit film industry is very hierarchical. You're at the bottom. It's just, there's a lot of things I did not enjoy. So I pivoted into like a full-blown production company. I was doing a lot of commercials, branded content, things of that nature, did one feature film, worked on Hollywood productions, whether it was with ABC or Discovery or whatever else. And then another friend of mine who we now own a show with and who hosts the show, Gary Brado, came to me and he said, I have an idea. I want to do a show about entrepreneurship. Nobody's doing it. It's 2012, 2013. The economy is shit. If we took the cameras and we went to people's businesses and we asked them how they do this, we would become better business people. We're basically cherry picking for information.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never done a TV show, but why not? This is very common for me. This is what I do in life. I said, let's do this. He said, so I know people that do a local show. We'll take it to local PBS, and that's how we're going to get it distributed. So we shot a pilot, literally went down the street to a coffee shop. There was like barely streetlights in Detroit at that point, filmed them, shot somebody else, took it to PBS. And they said, oh my God, this is great, but let's do this regionally. Go to Chicago, shoot another pilot. So we got back in our car, self-financed, shot another pilot, brought it back, and they said to us, oh my God, this is amazing. We're going to take you guys national. We're popping the champagne, and then they dropped a bomb. They like, now go find the money. We're like, what? What do you mean go find the money? Because remember, we're green. We have no idea what we're doing. Like at all. We're like, oh, we got to find the money for this. So now we found ourselves just like any business owner, right? Proof of concept is there. The idea is great. We have distribution, but we have no money. So we've set out on a very difficult task of financing an independently produced national television show about entrepreneurship, which we knew nothing about. At that point, I had never asked anybody for more than $25,000. And obviously that was not going to cut it. Our budget was, almost seven figures. So that's how this whole thing started.
And so there are going to be folks that are listening to this. I know a few personally that are in that stage of their career where they're going to have to start to seek funding. What steps did you take? You can be as specific or vague as you'd like. What steps did you take to start down that path of generating some finances for the show?
So me being a terribly logical person, I asked my business partner, so what do people do? They said they probably hire people to help them find the money. I'm like, oh, great idea. Let's hire people that have done this before. They'll help us. We did. They didn't help us. They didn't find any money. So some time went by and we're like, okay, we're going to have to figure this out. And literally we figured it out by trial and error. We made a list of every company that we thought would be great at sponsoring a show. And we literally started cold calling them. Like literally any way we could find it, good old fashioned cold calling. So I found a guy at LinkedIn that I knew that worked at American Express. And I wrote him a message. I said, we haven't talked in 10 years, but can you help me get an exuberant amount of money from American Express to finance my TV show? So the guy said, I met my wife at your party. I love you and I love my wife. I'm going to help you.
Wow.
So that set us off on this crazy sort of wind whirl where I found myself sitting on the 41st floor of American Express Tower asking for like $350,000, $400,000. Deep inside, I was sitting there going, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, seriously, I'm at American Express. I'm asking for so much money for something that doesn't even exist. So our first sponsor that came on board became American Express.
Wow.
She gave me the money. We're still friends to this day. And last year or 2 years ago, she told me, Alexa Brand from American Express told me, she's like, you know why I gave you the money? I said, no, actually, I don't. It's really crazy. She's like, you said something to me that really resonated. You said, I'm a woman of my word, and I promise you this is going to be the best investment that I ever made. She said, and the way you said that made me believe in you, not your project. So when I talk to people about getting money, I feel like there's few things, right? So people are not giving you money a lot of time based on your idea because it doesn't even exist, right? They're looking at how prepared are you? And luck favors the prepared. I never go into a meeting pitching without being able to answer any question possible that arises. The minute you hesitate, you're done.
That's another question I have for you, because I identify a lot with what you're talking about it for yourself. I've always struggled with talking to folks that seem like maybe they're a little phony, or maybe they're phoning it in, or they're saying all the right stuff. How do you find that you're able to navigate that world as successfully as you have, coming from the type of personality that you have?
You got to read the room,
Yeah.
right? You got to read the room. And at the end of the day, every single human being is standing on their own stage. Okay. Yeah. It's a very important concept to grasp. Okay. People are very selfish creatures by nature. I mean, we just can't help it. We love ourselves. We love our world. Of course, I'm generalizing, right? So every time you're having a conversation with somebody, people want to know that you're genuinely tuned in, right? That you are listening to them. And you just have to pay attention to what people are talking about. And when I talk to people in the corporate world and I create partnerships, right, I go into them genuinely. I don't pitch people that I don't feel would benefit from what we're doing. And I'm always asking people, what problem are they trying to solve? And if my product, whatever it's my film, or maybe it's my motivational speaking, whatever it is that I'm doing, if I'm genuinely helping them solve that problem, I don't see how it's not a win-win.
Yeah,
and I also
agree.
understand in corporations, people can be a certain way because they feel like they have to be this way. But I also feel like in 2022, that gap is kind of coming more together, where people don't necessarily need to wear those masks maybe as much, hopefully. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's really reading the room, really being genuine, being present, and knowing who you're talking to and what's your purpose, right? For me, everything in life is about purpose. What's your purpose? Why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. Like, why are we even having this conversation?
Yeah, and to that point, do you see a through line in yourself? Is it creativity? Because there's been a broad types of things that you've done. What do you think is the through line for you in all of these wonderful things that you've been able to accomplish? My
personal vision is to inspire people to be better versions of themselves through storytelling. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, I've thought about it. I'm like, what's the common thread here in everything that I do, right? I see that I can inspire people, whether it's through films I make, television I produce, music I play, just having a social platform, motivational speaking. It's all inspiration. It's for people to kind of dig deep and be like, let me just put all of this away. Like, what is my purpose? How can I be better? Like, how can I get motivated by right things in life? And if I can inspire people to do that through anything I do, then that's on my agenda.
Yeah, and that immediately makes me think of Girls Gone Vinyl. Can you talk a little bit about Girls Gone Vinyl and what that means to you and how you're involved in that?
Yeah, of course. So it's a project we created, maybe 12 years ago, maybe 10. I don't remember what year it was. So being a DJ, it's an extremely male-dominated profession. I mean, even now, all these years later, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's less than 10% women. if I'm going to count the festivals, maybe between 3 to 5% women are appearing there. And that's happening really not for the lack of really great female talent. It's just the way this cookie has crumbled for a really long time. And until we came around, nobody even pushed that conversation, right? That was not even a part of the conversation. So, basically, I had a partner in this, Maggie Dorthick, who would do a party called Girls Gone Vinyl in Detroit, because there's a big techno festival that happens here. And every time women would come, they would have no platform to really play. So she started this event. So one year she came to me, she said, I want to do this event. I want you to be involved. And I thought about it. I'm like, I just started this production company. I said, screw the event. I think it needs to be bigger than an event. I said, let's put this out there as a project. So we started talking to a lot of women, and we heard across the world, it was all the same, Like, I remember playing in South Africa and 2 DJs coming up to me and going, you're pretty good for a girl. Like, I'm playing on like a massive stage. Okay. There's like 10, 15,000 people. Okay.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
like, right. Like, I am at the peak of my career, but I'm pretty good for a girl. Like, I'm not even just pretty good. I'm actually even pretty good for a girl. Right. So every woman, literally no exceptions, I don't care what level of the career they were in, it was always the same thing. Guys were standing in front of you, staring at you. Can you really mix 2 records together? If you put out and produce music, the conversation is always your boyfriend is ghostwriting it for you. You are pretty good for a girl is if you're spinning with parts of your body that are female oriented versus just, So we felt like we really need to push and create this conversation. And we need to call out every festival and every top 100 list and be like, where are the women? It's not like they're not in this world, because we are, but like, where are they really? Right. So we dug deep and we just discovered many, many different things. I kickstarted that project. We went around the world. We filmed it. The bigger vision of it, it's still sitting in a can, unfortunately. So we've put out some smaller pieces. We've had a lot of media presence. We've done a lot of events. I'm yet to finish and put out the final project, which I really hope would be soon.
Oh, that'd be great. And then the other movie that I recently watched of yours was The Russian Five. Maybe tell us what got you involved in that and what the topic of that was, because I had no idea about that story and really, really enjoyed the show.
Yeah, that's probably one of the greatest sports stories, actually.
Really, really good.
Sports. So yeah, if somebody's listening hasn't seen it, I highly recommend it. Not because I made it and it's sort of my baby and my legacy piece. It's just as a piece of sports history. It's really amazing. So obviously there were Russian guys that played in Detroit, and I knew them personally. So while everybody was like a huge fan of them and they were stars, they would actually come and play soccer with us, like poor immigrants that had no money. The difference would be like Sergei Fedorov would pull up with a brand new Corvette while like we had a 1979 Pontiac Bonneville. But they were really great guys, and we saw them really come into the city and create what they did. And I remember that parade really well, 1997. 1 million people in the city of Detroit would never happen. It was just not a thing. 1997 Detroit, 1 million people, let alone of all colors mixing together, were just not in Detroit. And watching that, I was like, wow, what a special moment, like to have something like this bring so many people together in such a beautiful way. So that story was just that story. I never thought about it again. And it was about 2017, 2018. I was sitting at my office. I got a phone call and somebody said, I have this guy, he just moved here from Texas. His name is Josh. He wants to do something with the Russians, and you're the only Russian person I know. Can you talk to him? I said, I have half an hour. He can come and see me. So he came, and that morning I said to myself, there's not another project I'm putting on my plate. I'm so busy, like I cannot do any, like literally. I was having that conversation. As entrepreneurs, we know that conversation, right? So shows up this like American guy, kind of soft-spoken, doesn't have the best pitching skills. Nice guy though. And he tells me that he wants to make the story of the Russian Five. And I'm like, fuck. I just said I'm not going to do anything. Like, really? And this is what he's pitching me? Like, this is like mind blowing. Why hasn't anybody done it? Like, And then he's telling me all the intricacies before we did the movie. Nobody even knew how they got them out of the Soviet Union. I was like, oh my God. And then I also believe in energy and just following what's happening and just trusting the process. Mm-hmm. So I looked him in the eye. I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to one person only. It's a very expensive film. If he gives me the money it's meant to be, I will do this. If he says no, I can't do this because it's too hard to raise money in film. This is very niche and it's very hard. He said, okay. He said, you were my last chance. I've been trying to do this for 4 or 5 years to lift off this project. I moved back to Michigan. So you're like my last hope to ever have this dream come true. So I went to an acquaintance of mine who is now a dear friend, Daniel Milstein, who owns a mortgage company, Gold Star, but had also become a hockey agent for Pavel Datsyuk, who was a big player.
Mhm.
And I pitched him and I told him, I said, listen, this is our legacy. If me and you don't do it, I don't know who does. Like this story dies. Because the minute the people who were there stop talking about it, it's not documented. I said, the story goes away. So if you don't give me the money and I don't make this, then it dies. So we got to decide are we doing this or not. So he was in. So I've set off on a very difficult, it was a very hard project. It was a super hard project for many, many reasons. I've set off a really difficult journey of making that movie with my team. And I don't regret a single second of it. It's a piece of my legacy, and I love that project. I love that film. I love what it did, solidifying that piece of history.
Today's show is brought to you by High Level CRM. High Level is an all-in-one platform designed to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses without the need for multiple softwares or an IT team. Not only does their easy-to-use software allow you to track and manage your leads throughout each phase of the relationship, but it also allows you to build funnels, track stats, and more. Guys, I sat down and added up the cost of software I was able to replace with just one app, and it was over $1,000 per month. Because this is an all-in-one application, I also save a ton of headaches connecting apps and building automations, and the team at Go High Level does a great job of getting you started quickly and easily when you sign on. I cannot more highly recommend these guys. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners get a free 14-day trial of High Level CRM for themselves. Click the link in our show notes to support the show and get started on your free 14-day trial today. Today's show is brought to you by Scaling with Media. I mean, literally, like if it weren't for the folks at Scaling with Media, you would not be getting this. Scaling with Media is a truly revolutionary company for any entrepreneur who wants to reach a larger audience without taking on the years of experience necessary to master the required skills. These guys do it all. From helping you develop your creative plan to editing, sourcing content, copywriting, ads management, and way more. Whether you're looking to launch a YouTube channel or podcast, or you just want to scale your business out to more eyeballs, these guys are the absolute best one-stop shop. But that's not all. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners who sign up for their brand launch package will receive a free, that's right, free professional grade studio kit that I'm actually recording right now on. The studio kit includes a professional microphone, stand, lighting, and headphones, and is worth well over $500. Take action now by going to scalingwithmedia.com/spear and claim your free studio kit. Again, that's scalingwithmedia.com/spear, scalingwithmedia.com/spear. Now back to the show.
Yeah, and you mentioned storytelling, and the one feedback I would give you is the storytelling of bringing together so many different people and ideas and events, both in the sports world as it related to the Detroit Red Wings and them acquiring these very talented young players out of the Soviet Union, but also just in general, in the socio-political stuff in the beginning especially, and telling that story I thought was just so, was really, really, really good. And we'll put a link to the video below for the Amazon link. I watched it over the weekend. To what extent was this, like, how would you describe the difference between filming a show like Startup versus doing a documentary were you guys actually doing a lot of the interviewing? Were you collecting and aggregating things that already existed?
Yeah, it's completely different process, and filmmaking is extremely collaborative. Back to your point, I couldn't make this film, so I went through a couple different post houses with my director Josh, and post houses is like where the magic happens, right? Where the story comes together. And not until I actually took it outside of Michigan, we actually took it to Texas to people who knew nothing about the story. And they helped us make it so interesting that it's compelling to people who don't care about the Wings, who don't care about hockey, So that part is so collaborative in filmmaking. Television is a lot more straightforward and it's a lot faster gratification process, okay? Basically, it's very controlled. Like, I know what it is. It's formulaic. It's a show. I'm going to film it this spring and then I'm going to smile and watch it on TV in September, right?
Yeah.
And here we are. And it's kind of the same, going on a journey of telling a story in a documentary specifically where there's no script It's living and breathing organisms that develop creatively, right? We went here, somebody said something to us. Now we're going down this rabbit hole. And next thing you know, you're like 2 years longer into this than you wanted to be, right? So it's a very different endeavor that just keeps on living, right? And then you finish the film, then you got to figure out the distribution and play the festivals. So from the time he came to me until the time it played on the screen in a theater, it was years, not months, like I'm used to in TV, right? So you just have to have all of this patience, and you have to make, like, for me, it's the best possible product. Until it's there, it can't see the light of day, no matter how stressed out people are who are in this journey with you. And they get stressed out, especially people who give you money.
Yeah, I'm
They just
sure.
get stressed out. They're like, what's happening? Is this going to be done? And like, how fast am I going to see this on the big screen? You know?
Yeah, and even just doing this show is the first time I've ever had to even think about editing beyond just watching TV, right? And I've noticed it's either there or it isn't, and you have to try and find a story within that. And so I can't even imagine having all these disparate sources of, video and content and trying to go through and get a narrative through line and put that in there. And I just think you guys did such a great job. I don't know, to what extent that happened. But yeah, and then the other thing is versus, let's say startup or scripted shows or a movie or something like that, you're creating a story. In this case, when you do a documentary, and I think you guys did kudos to you. I think you did a really great job of this. The story exists and you're just trying to do it service and like get it to, and I think you guys did that in such a powerful way. So again, shout out to that film. One thing I wanted to bring up, I have several friends, a growing number, frankly, of entrepreneurs that are from the Detroit area. One in particular, Martin Ralsmean, has been a friend for years and like a brother to me. What I notice is folks out of Detroit want to stay in Detroit and build something in Detroit. Is that something that you share? Is that something that you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I always tell people? I could live anywhere in the world. I choose to live here. I'm not here because like I feel stuck and oh my God, I need to be here. You know what? I really love the vibe of the city. I love the grit. There's just something about it that's really special. Yes, it's not polished, and yes, people think it's not happening, which by the way is not true. On any given night there's so many incredible things happening in Detroit, from entrepreneurial to art to music culture. It's just, there's just something about it that's very special. And yes, most people that are truly in, they're mostly in,
Yeah, I
especially
mean,
from entrepreneurial perspective.
yeah, I mean, listen, I know tons of Chicago entrepreneurs, and at our core, we're all Chicago guys, right? But there's nobody, I don't know many Chicago guys that are like, we're going to do it. We're going to put Chicago on the map. We're going to, like, no. And, I know guys from Austin, or I know guys from Miami or New York, right? Nobody's out there trying to like, I feel like a lot of people rep their city. I feel like Detroit people are like, I don't know, like, more, there's something more. I can't put it to words very well right now.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Detroiters rep their city really hard. I don't know
Hard.
either. I think it's probably everybody. You used to get on the plane and have a chit chat, and people go, "Where are you from?" You go, "From Detroit." They're like, "Oh shit," They're like, they think like people are just walking around Detroit with like AK-47s and people getting shot left and right. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
like seriously, and people still think that. I still get that. They're like, "Oh my God, you live in Detroit." I was like, "The fuck
Wow.
have you been there? Like, what do you think is happening there?"
Yeah. To be completely fair, I have seen an AK-47 in Detroit, but in general, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. I mean, listen, we've gone out there many times, and it's just a beautiful. The infrastructure is beautiful. That city, when it was built to be thriving, was built so beautifully, and there's so much to it. But again, because look, Chicago's not what it once was. There's a lot of cities that are not what they maybe once were. The difference is like, you see the entrepreneurs really caring about rebuilding it back in a way that I don't think you see everywhere else. And I think some of that's Detroit, some of that's the Midwest and the weather that we have, its resilience of people. And I just have always admired the entrepreneurs that I've met from Detroit for sure. So I have two questions that I ask everybody that comes on the show. The first question is, if you had access to unlimited financial resources, how would you grow what you're currently doing profitably? And you have a few different things that you're doing. So what would you do if you had unlimited financial capital? How would you profitably grow the projects that you're involved in?
Unlimited financial resources.
Yeah.
I would definitely create a channel that's just inspiration and education, honestly, like with a younger, hipper flavor, you know, because it's like we get left out of so many rooms with ideas that are pure inspiration and education, just because our business is kind of so legacy driven with all of the things and all of the measurables of how they view success, or trying to fit into the status quo, what's happening in society. Like just looking at our business in the last couple of years and the way it pivoted, and some of that pivoting needed to happen, but at the same time, where you can't just anymore tell a story for the sake of good story, just because there's so much framework on what some people at the top think need to be happening because of the and what's happening in the world. It's just it has become challenging a lot of times. Be like, this is a great story, like this is a great person to tell the story, can we just let all of the bullshit go, and then really create something for just younger people out there. Together with this channel, I would create some kind of a mentorship opportunity situation, just because this business is also extremely nepotistic. Extremely nepotistic. It's about who you know, who you're related to, who you had lunch with last time,
Yeah.
versus like where does this true talent lie, and how can we even out the playing field in every sense of the way.
Yeah, the word you said, mentorship, really strikes a chord with me. I think, somebody like you who's already gone out there and made so much impact, and I am sure has much impact left to make. But what role has mentorship, how much mentorship are you, doing? Do you have folks that you take under your wing? What does mentorship mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my philanthropic endeavors are kind of very different in many different senses of the way. So, I answer to everybody, whoever reaches out to me. I don't care if you're like a nobody, somebody, and everywhere in between. Mentors played a great role in my life. So, I put myself out there for young people as much as possible. So, and I do it in many different ways. So, there's thing called Girls Rock Detroit, for instance, where in the summer we teach young girls music and we build self-esteem through that. We teach them how to DJ. So I love that endeavor from a DJing perspective. From the film perspective, I specifically find people that want to be in the business but don't necessarily have a skill, and I train that skill.
Wow.
Because that's the hardest part, right? You show up, you're like, I want to do this, and people are like, what have you done? You're like, nothing, and people are like, bye, right?
Yeah.
So I make sure, like, if I see somebody and they're really truly passionate and they're like, give me a chance, I'll bring them in. I'll train them on the skill. And some of the people that I have trained and put through the ringer have gone on to do really amazing things. And it makes me feel so great when I watch these people and they're like, wow, you gave me a chance to work on this project and now I'm doing something phenomenal. That's just beautiful to me. I also do Habitat for Humanity. I go to third world countries to build homes for people with my two hands, because that's like a basic shelter idea.
Yeah.
So mentorship, I think, is extremely important. I mean, finding people with passion and giving them an opportunity to step into your world is important. And in entrepreneurship as well, like EO's got a great program for global students, and when I meet students in that program, I offer them mentorship as well.
Yeah, and congratulations to you. My understanding is you're the president-elect of the Detroit chapter of EO.
I am, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm looking forward to taking over for the upcoming year. Yeah.
Well, I can see why. So the second question that I ask everybody that comes on the show is, if you couldn't do any of the businesses or projects that you've done up until now, if you had to leave those industries behind, what would be a business that you would start that you've never been involved in before?
A business I would start now that I've never been involved in before.
Or that you would have interest in? I had to phrase it differently for you because you've had so many different types of things in your past.
That's really interesting. I never thought about this before. I think it would be something in the capacity, like I'm fascinated by this concept of where we are as a society, and why we are in places where we are. And I'm fascinating. I have this other great business partner, David London, who has this concept of unlearning. And he always talks about, what if we could unlearn everything we know and start over in a lot of different areas. I would start something around unlearning, but I think it would specifically, I would have something to do with young women, appearances, just the way things have been framed and the pressures that society puts you through, or what they think you are, or how you should look, or who you think you should be. I don't know, it would be some kind of business where I could teach people or have some kind of product where they could realize what it's like to really be authentic and feel good in your skin.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know what
that's
it would be and what kind of application that is, but I see that lacking so much. People having this fears of like really exploring truly who they are.
yeah, I think that's hard for people because a lot of times, you spend so much time telling yourself that the course of action that you're taking, the momentum that you're on is you. And I've been that person before, and I'm sure at some point or another you have, and everybody has. And I think sometimes it takes a little bump in the road to be like, wait a second, I don't even feel that way, or I don't even do those things. And I think for somebody like you to have spent so much time kind of going against that and talking now about it, I think that's really powerful stuff, because I think it's hard for people. We're surrounded by people telling us what we are, right?
Yeah. And this metaverse thing, honestly, it's terrifying to me, right?
Really?
Like, because that's exactly like I know, and I don't want to sound old, right? Because I feel like when you think about these new ideas, right? Like when crypto first came, NFT, metaverse, right? Like, I don't want to sound old and be like, oh my God, what is this crap? And like, it's weird, it's this, it's that, like I'm trying to dive in and understand it, right? And the deeper I dive in into the concept of metaverse, right? But that's taking you away from who you are, right? You have this perceived notion of who you're going to be in that world, right? Like the way I picture it, it's those movies, right, where they connect you to this thing and you go to this alternative augmented reality, and there you have all of those things that you don't have here.
Yeah.
But like,
It's
why don't you have them here, right? Like you can have them here and it's a human connection. Why do you have to go in that world and look a certain way? Or there you're gonna buy a certain island and have a certain car. I don't know, like I picture metaverse is this weird place where people are just gonna like just disconnect from reality.
So when you talk about the metaverse, the thing that immediately jumps to mind is you're a DJ. And when I was young, I've been to raves and I've been to techno parties. There's a lot of people in real life that use those types of things as an outlet to be this fantasy, or to dress a certain way, or to act a certain way, or behave a certain way. And so I share your concerns when it comes to the metaverse and NFT, giving us an opportunity to maybe let go of reality a little bit, and maybe not such a good way. But what do you think about the idea that maybe it'll enhance somebody who maybe feels like otherwise they couldn't have had those experiences? I'm very curious on how this is all going to play out, but I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there is definitely going to be a positive, interesting things that come out of it,
Yeah.
right? Just like, okay, listen, social media, right? When it first invented, like it was sold under this idea, like we're gonna get all of these people connected, right? Same thing as metaverse. Like you're gonna have this experience, you're gonna be connected more than ever, right? But as we dive into it, they designed it with certain evil in mind. That's the problem that I have, right? Like social media didn't have to have those factors, right? That get kids serotonin dripping every time somebody likes something, right? Now you got somebody addicted to something. So, like, what are you doing? What's your purpose? If your true purpose is to connect people, what's all that liking for, right? What are all those ideas? What are those algorithms for? So I just don't think it's that innocent. If it was built truly to say, hey, that's your experience, and they're not going to put anything fucked up in there that's going to get people, especially kids, addicted to being a part of this and kind of stepping into this different type of rat race, right? That human beings are a part of, then that's one thing. But they have been proven guilty of creating things with evil purpose in mind.
You know
Granted,
what?
there's so many great things on social media that I personally enjoy. I can inspire people. I know what my friends are doing in Ukraine, Russia, Japan, everywhere else in the world. We're staying connected. But I'm also like a conscious, strong human being that understands, like, hey, these are the things I need to step back from. Like, this is how I got to treat this thing, because somebody else is treating it in a completely different way. And it's creating divide, it's creating hatred, it's creating so many different platforms, right? And so much addiction and so many bad things. So if they take that out of equation, I buy it. But if they don't, I don't see it. What are they trying to do?
You totally nailed it. That was a perfect answer. I got nothing to add, because you're right. I mean, at a certain point, each generation of technology evolves to be better and better and better at keeping us engaged, and humans are still just the same. We haven't changed, right? And so, I only can hope, the next generation is wise to that from a very early age, if we're very, very lucky, because it certainly doesn't seem, like you said, like they're going to slow that down. And you're right. We've seen already, whether if you've watched, what is it? The Social Network. There's several documentaries out there that kind of address this, and there's some people doing some really good work on how to mitigate it, but it's so alluring. I mean, I'm somebody who agrees with everything you just said, and I still find myself sitting on stupid Instagram and sharing reels and all the other
Because it's
stuff.
hard, right?
Yeah.
Like, because they are operating at such a high level of science. They know exactly how our brain operates. They know exactly what to give us to feel good about what's happening, right? And it's so thought through. It's crazy, right? Like, we as human beings, you're right, are not evolved enough to fight that, right? And frankly, I love the art of human connection. I love what's happening now, right? And a lot of young people, I feel, are losing that art, right? Like, people don't even call each other anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and it's a joke, but it's not a joke, right? Like, you call somebody and people are like, why are you calling me? And it has become this people are texting each other and it's faithless, and like the whole idea, how do people meet each other? How do people get to know each other? I mean, yes, we're evolving as a society in that sense, but is it bringing more good or more bad into it?
Yeah, is it a net positive or not? So what do you think, and this is certainly, I'm putting you on the spot here, but is there anything you think, what turns this around? Do you think that it's government involvement? Do you think that it's got to just be conscientious alternative app platforms, or what do you think would be the best solution? Because I don't have very many good ideas on that.
Yeah, I don't think government is a solution for anything coming from Soviet Union, right? Because
I agree with you.
government is it's government, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you would hope that people have enough social responsibility, but we know that doesn't work either, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's the alternatives, or maybe sadly it might be too late. I don't know. Maybe it's out of our hands. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know what the answer to this is. And interestingly enough, if you study and read enough about people who control all these tech companies, their kids are not, they're trying to keep them away from that as far as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in general, if you look at, gross income by average, or if you look at education by average, just intelligent, wealthy people are not letting their children have the same level of engagement with social media that the other side of the spectrum is either. I think there's no small reason for that.
Yeah, there's something to be said, right? People used to dream about going to space or being this or being that, right? You're talking to young kids now who are dreaming about being TikTok stars.
Yeah, and there's a whole Pandora's box to be unlocked there, because there's reports that like TikTok in China is like highlighting people with doing these amazing accomplishments and doing all these meritorious things, and then TikTok in America is like people shaking their butt and doing a dance trend. So hopefully that's just conspiracy theory with a tinfoil hat, but to me, I think, to your point, anything that brings people together, like even as we were talking, I'm like, I love that I have Zoom, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with you. And I suspect that, like me, you're somebody, I certainly am, somebody that really thrives on talking to people, on being in the room with people, and on being around people. And if COVID has taught us anything, it's that in the absence of that, this is, the next best thing. And man, I really hope, I'm always optimistic, but I also can kind of see some things coming that maybe aren't in the best interest of us, right?
Right. And then, at the end of the day, it's also perspective, right? You live in countries like North Korea where people have no access to any of that, right? No information, and that part is even scarier.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, though, too, that, there's never been, not North Korea, but there's never been a time in my life where I didn't have internet and I didn't have social media or whatever, and I was sad. If it's right there, you use it. But if you're out in the woods or hiking through the mountains or going skiing or even out with friends, right, at a great dinner, those are the best times, is when you're actually engaging with somebody IRL. Right. Well, Jenny, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. You've done a ton of things behind you. What's coming forward for you? What's in the future for you? What's over the horizon?
What's coming forward? So we're celebrating a 10-year anniversary of our show this year. Startup is turning 10. Yeah. So that's super exciting. This year we got a call from NASA. So fingers crossed, we're actually going to be working with NASA on highlighting some interesting programs they have for entrepreneurs. That's
Wow.
kind of like top of the game, right? NASA calls you. For me, I'm such a nerd. I love that. And, of course, it's more storytelling. I'm working on a couple of super fascinating projects. I just filmed a small piece with Anis Kanter. I don't know if you're familiar with who he is. He's
No,
a
not that
basketball
man.
player out of Boston Celtics. That's a human rights activist
Wow.
that has actively been calling out China for human rights abuses. So we are, fingers crossed, working in a project with him, which is in the sports realm, but more so in the human rights realm. And listen, we're always like pitching new ideas. We have a couple scripts in the feature projects and more shows on the horizon. And this is the year where I would love to do more public speaking. So I'm looking forward to that. I've got a couple keynotes lined up and just enjoying life, like to me, it's just life is here to be lived and people need to enjoy it because tomorrow is never given to us.
Yeah, and I've said this before on this call, but even just looking at your Instagram, and Instagram's never the best judge, but I can see you living your life. You're traveling, you're spending time with your family, you love your son and your dog and your wife. It's just so inspiring. If somebody is out there right now listening to this show and they've made it this far, and they're a young entrepreneur, or maybe they want to become an entrepreneur, what advice maybe would you give a person like that who maybe has not yet gone down the path that you have?
I mean, honestly, as easy as it sounds, and as like, honestly, anything is possible. I always talk about that. And I mean, it's really, really true. And it only happens in America. Like, I will always say it. I've traveled the world, I've seen other countries. Anything is not possible in many other places in the world. But here it truly is. Okay. I came here, $100, 6 suitcases. I've had nothing, right? This year, I'm going to celebrate 10 years of a national television show that's watched by millions of people. And when I was growing up, everything that I do now was against the law. Music, film, business. And I do all of it now. And I enjoy life. And I can give you 100 other people's stories that have made it from nothing into something, right? It's just what it takes. It's execution, people. Execute on your plans. Like, stop thinking about it. Like, don't be afraid of failure. You're going to fail. Just execute. That's what separates people from like successful people to people who continue to think about their ideas. And just try it. Like, break everything down to a smallest common denominator and start it with the first step, right? Because you're not going to have your 50th time if you never had your first one. So just do it, like literally. That's it.
I love it. And so for that person, for anybody listening, how do they find you? How do they find your stuff? We will be having all your links below, but if somebody's driving in the car, what's the best way for them to kind of enter your world?
So Parliament Studios is the company that I own, startup television show. So they could look that up on PBS. And Jenny LaFemme is my DJ name. And that's how I am on all the social platforms. You guys can write me on any social media. I will answer. You can write me an email, whatever it is that you want. Like, just enjoy life, people out there. Okay. Like, seriously, just think about what you want to do. It doesn't matter if it's crazy enough. Just do it.
If you can listen to Jenny talk and you don't go out and try and enjoy life and grab the bull by the horns, I don't think you have a pulse. Jenny, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been an unbelievably great conversation. I really am excited to get it out to the listeners soon. And I'd love to have you back on anytime that you have anything to promote, or if you just want to come back on and shoot the breeze, I would have you on in a heartbeat.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to show us some love by liking, rating, and subscribing so we can keep making more and better content. If you'd like to support the show and get a great additional content like exclusive shows and even live group masterminds, please head over to patreon.com/Spear and Clover to become a member of the tribe. If you're interested in learning more about how we help entrepreneurs, visit spearandclover.com or message us on any of our platforms. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.